Hey, everybody, and welcome back to the podcast. I am very excited to have with me here Alana Kilmartin. She is you're originally from Australia, yeah?
Yeah,
Okay, but I know you were like in New Zealand. She was all over in different places, but she is in Australia doing some really cool stuff, and I am excited to have her here with me today. So, Alana, thanks for being here.
thank you for having me, Jess. This is very exciting. It's a little bit almost of a pinch me moment. I remember when I encountered your work a few years ago, and I was like, that is so awesome. I love what she's about. So to be a guest on the podcast is very exciting.
I love it. And it's funny. I was thinking about it today because it's like I think we met through like the To Be Magnetic community. I think you like reached out to me on there, which I barely did that at the time. And then we connected, and so it's really cool to see how the connections kind of come full circle. So I'm excited.
Absolutely.
Okay, so tell everybody a little bit about yourself and the very cool work that you're doing in the world.
Yeah, so I released a book last year called Unserious Careers, and I mean the tagline is a fun guide to the first 5 years of your career. And I pretty much describe it as it was the book that I needed when I was 18 and leaving school, trying to figure out adulting, career, life, all of that sort of stuff. And a lot of it is informed by my journey career wise, life wise. And I wanted to really create a resource for young people so they didn't have to feel so overwhelmed or confused, especially in those first few years after school. And while it took a long time to finish it and release it, finally it got released. And then I had this kind of crazy idea to do this roadshow across Australia to speak at high schools in 2025. And that's a bit of a crazy story, which we can go into of how all of that came to be. But I'm now, yeah, like a couple of months into my roadshow in 2025, and I've been to heaps of schools and it's been incredible. Yeah, connecting with young people and talking about the book and my journey. It's a bit of a crazy, surreal time at the moment.
Yeah, amazing. I want to talk about I want to kind of like re I guess how do I wanna put it? Like, I wanna say first, you're a 4/6 and you're a manifesting generator. Are you emotional authority?
Emotional.
Okay. Oh, thumbs up. This is like not a human design podcast, and yet at the same time, I'm finding myself now talking about everyone's human designs on the podcast because you're a few years younger than I am. I'm 36. I know you've kind of just crossed recently over the 30-year-old threshold, but I remember us talking a few years ago, and it was before I think you turned 30, and you were like in a
Mhm.
very different space, and you were working, I think, with corporate companies, wasn't it?
Yes, I was doing some like business consulting. I reckon
Yes.
when we first connected.
Yeah. And I know we talked a lot about kind of like maybe feeling there were certain things with the industry and the coaching industry and stuff that it was kind of like just didn't fully feel like a fit, or just didn't fully feel like it was like having a hard time figuring out sort of like your place or your space within that, or if it was even something that you wanted to fit into, or if you wanted to do something different. I know you've been through different iterations, but I'm curious for you in your journey because you're kind of recently over that sixth line threshold. For people who understand human design, 0 to 30, you're kind of bumping into stuff, trying stuff out, starting one career, starting another career, having unserious careers, like whatever it may be. And then you kind of cross over that 30 threshold and you're like, okay, it's time to lay a new foundation. Like something new is coming. So I'm curious for you what that process of sort of like going up on the roof, what was it like before? And what has that process of sort of transitioning into this 30 plus space been like for you personally?
It's been a wild journey. My I probably should have added at the start a little bit about me. I was quite academic at school, and that was then it was the maths and it was the sciences, and I thought I wanted to be a doctor, and it wasn't necessarily that people were putting pressure on me to do that, but I felt that pressure just through the process of my education and schooling. And then I kind of realized as I came out of my teenage years that I don't want to do that. It just didn't feel like a fit for me and what I wanted to do in life. And I probably felt most of my 20s, I had some really great successes and all that kind of fun stuff. But I really was really adventurous and I wanted to live overseas and I wanted to travel and try lots of different things. But I felt at the same time like no one else, everyone else was making these steps in these careers and they were I don't know, like they're getting the promotions and the money and all that kind of fun stuff. And so I spent a lot of time almost isolating myself, even moving to New Zealand. I reflect back on that now. Part of that was running away for a good reason, where it was like, I need a new space where I can explore what I want from my life. I can explore different career options. And I don't feel like I can do that where I grew up around the people that have known me for many years. And yeah, it was so messy, some of it. Like, it was so messy, those 20s. And, you try the next thing, you're like, this is it. Like, this is the thing I want to do. And then 6 months later, it's like, I can't imagine doing another 6 months in this, let alone another 6 years or whatever it might be. And I think I got quite frustrated during that time of um, feeling like I was a quitter, and I knew I had this ambition and this passion, and I wanted to really make a difference in the world. I probably knew I wanted to have my own business, but never knew how to really channel that energy towards a meaningful goal or anything like that. But it got to a point where it was that kind of crossroads, and this was when I was just before I was 30, so I was 29, and my partner and I had this talk, and we were like, "We feel like we're going backwards now in New Zealand. Like, this has been great. It's been a wonderful time. We've been there nearly 5 years." But we were like, "It's really time to now step into this next phase of our lives. If we ever want to start a family, what do we want to do before that to give us the best opportunity to do that?" And we're like, let's sell everything. Let's go on like an adult gap year. Let's travel for a year. My partner had never done something like that before. And so we sold up everything. And it was really through that year of being on the road. And it was actually in America, funnily enough. It was in North Carolina, kind of like Tennessee area. And I just had this moment where I was like, I'm ready to go home. Like, I'm ready to go to Australia again. And I'd never felt that before. Like, I'd never felt that calling to Australia. And it just happened. It was very natural. I slept on it a few days. I spoke to my partner about it, and he's like, yeah, absolutely, let's do it. And yeah, it was almost like this weird kind of homecoming where I knew it was time to come back to Australia. We did out the rest of the year. And towards the end of that year of travel, we were in the UK. And my partner said this line to me, something along the lines of, I don't want to see you give up on Unserious Careers, because I'd written the book. It needed more editing, but I'd got like a soft version of it. And he said, I don't want you to give up on that. And I remember I snapped back at him and I said, that's not your decision to make. And there
Mhm.
was something about that interaction. I woke up 2 days later being like, holy crap, he's so right. Unserious Careers is the thing I want to do. I don't want to walk away from it. I really want to give it like the best possible opportunity to take off and all that kind of stuff. And that was probably about 2 weeks before we were due to move back to Australia. And when we moved to Australia, it was quite challenging to begin with. There was like, our rental was awful, and there was a couple of other bits and pieces going on. But I pretty much said, I was like, right, 2024, let's give it 1 year. I'm going to go all in on Unserious Careers, and let's see how far I can take it. And so part of that was editing the book, releasing that, and then kind of building the brand. And it got to the end of 2024, and I was like, well, it's obviously a no brainer that I continue with this, because I'd started to build momentum. And I think now there was that transition, probably like 28, 29, 30, 31, where I could feel the shift. I could feel that it was like, I'm really ready to like step into life's work. Yes. Like, so that kind of feeling of like, I'm ready to just go all in on these things that I know I really want. And even though that was daunting, it was and I'm still adventurous. I still want to do all those adventures and stuff like that. I was just really to start having that impact in the world for other people. Whereas potentially a lot of my 20s was that, not in a bad way, but that selfish kind of, it's all about me experiencing these things. I want to go and do all this fun stuff. Whereas now I realize I want to really have a contribution to the world. And I've now gone out and explored myself enough that I'm ready to give that knowledge and that wisdom to other people. Does that make sense?
A
So it was like
1000%.
many years of like feeling like a failure, looking at people, even like yourself. I remember coming across you and I was like, oh my gosh, you're so amazing. And because you're that bit older than me, I was like, oh, I love what she's doing. Like, she's so successful, all that kind of stuff. And I always placed it as that's over there, like that's someone else. I'm not in that category. And it's really been these last 6 months where I was like, oh wow, I don't have that. I don't know where it's like the comparison, but it's like I feel really content in myself about what I'm doing at the moment. And I've probably not felt like that maybe ever, because I've always been
Totally.
like, yeah, I've got more goals and there's more things I want to accomplish, but I don't have that. They're more successful than me. I need to be doing that. It's like, no, I'm building, like it's all happening quite quickly, but this is what I want to be doing. And that's a really
Yeah.
indescribable feeling.
Totally. Yeah, you stop. Well, first off, thank you. And it's like you stop looking to that external of what other people are doing, and you're like, oh my God, the compass is literally inside of me, and I have to stack and like, yeah, I've already created the foundations because I went and did all the things I wanted to do and experimented and had that time in order to be able to understand and know myself and then know what I want to give to others. And it is so cool watching what you've created and how you're following your own truth and really allowing yourself to go and share that with the world. And so I am loving watching your journey. And, it's cool too because it's inspiring to me. I'm like, I love what you're doing. I love the way that you're working. I love what you're bringing, and I love that it's authentic to you, and that people need it. Like I think we're moving, in my personal opinion, like we're moving out of the box of it has to look like this and be packaged like this and make sure that you do this, this, and this into the era of like just be yourself and do your thing and create something that's unique to you. So yeah. What do you feel like have been some of your like biggest learnings as you've stepped out into that? And I love how you describe that progression to a being a sixth line. It's like you kind of are like, "Oh, okay, okay, it's time." There's almost that sort of like reckoning with yourself where you're like, okay, it's time to kind of put that to the side and step into this more
Mm.
matured version. I don't know if that's how you want to put it, but it's a more, like you said, less self-focused and more looking out onto the horizon of where things are going and what you want to create. So, what do you feel like have been some of your biggest learnings as you've sort of navigated this transition?
I mean, no one actually knows what they're doing for a start. Like you
Yeah.
start realizing that no one knows what they're doing, and that's okay. I think some of the biggest learnings is the idea of time and needing to be or do a certain thing by a certain age where I've I've got friends from childhood, absolutely, but I've got really great friends as well that I've met more recently, and I think that's something where it's almost like an American. I think of it when I think of an American thing where you've got your big gal pack. And I'm like, that's just not me. Like, that's not
Yeah.
me.
Hmm.
And because I've evolved and developed as a person, I've had to learn that sometimes I need to then find new people that are going to match what I'm interested in at the moment. And even because I stopped drinking probably 5 years ago, I stopped drinking. And even that was okay, new identity. What do I do without that? I now need to find for other friends as well that are going to be supportive of this, but they just have like shared interests of what I like doing now. And it's not that I'm not friends with people before that, but it's just a different version, right? So I kind of need other people to help with that. And I think that that's okay. I've had to learn that that's okay, that it's just because you haven't been friends for 20 years doesn't mean this person isn't still someone that you're really great friends with and you can trust them and you'll be friends for the next 20 years or whatever it might be. Um, so to understand that there's phases, it's not one, obviously, it's so cliche, but it's not one linear thing, but there's just different phases and different chapters. And as much as I'd love for that progression to be linear and to be, I know exactly where I'm going to be in 5 years' time, I think I've become really comfortable with the idea that I don't know what 5 years looks like. And that doesn't mean I don't plan for that, but I'm open to where it might go. And I never want to be closed off enough to think that something better might not come along and that I'd be willing to jump at that. But something came up when you asked that question, a quick story. When I went to university, I lived on campus and I lived with a lot of medical students. And so they were all studying to become doctors, right? And I struggled with that a little bit because that was like the path I thought I wanted to go down. I didn't get the marks when I finished school, that kind of thing. And I used to look at these like other people and I go, they've got it so good, or they're so lucky, like they're on the track, everything. Like, yes, it was difficult what they were studying, but they had a really like clear path forward. You do 5 years of study, they help you get into a hospital, you do your graduate year, all this kind of stuff. And I was like so envious of that, that they had that all figured out. And throughout my 20s, I would almost compare myself then to some of these people that I'd lived with when I was 19, 20, 21 years old, and be like, man, how like they're already doing this, they're already doing that. And it was funny because I caught up only about a month ago with someone that I'd lived on campus with, and they're 30 years old and they're still not finished. Like they're still not fully qualified. And they said to me, they're they're doing their specialization at the moment. And they said to me, I had the moment last year where I thought about throwing it all in and running a bookstore, like opening my own bookstore. And it like blew me away to hear this insight from this person, because I knew them when they were 19 years old and they're now 30 years old. They're still not technically finished studying, like they're still like going and they're working full time and all that kind of stuff. And I just had this massive moment where I was like, I'm actually more confident in my path at the moment than what this person is. And because that path was so set out for them, they couldn't really veer from it, because then to veer from it is, well, what are you now going to do with the last 10 years of qualifications that you build up? You can't just transfer those kind of skills necessarily into something else. And it was this massive, like, yeah, aha moment, learning moment, whatever, of, yeah, wow, there was actually, even though I went through the frustration and the confusion and all that kind of stuff, that also allowed me to come out the other side. And I got to go, and it was almost like I got to answer the questions, as in, if I was a bit curious about something, I could go and try it. Like I could go and do it. And even if it didn't work out, at least I knew the answer, that that wasn't for me. And an example might be, at one point I was like, I wonder what it'd be like to work in real estate. And I worked in real estate briefly. And it was like, even though I never want to work in real estate again, I now at least have that answer. Like I'm not fantasizing about what that would be like. And yeah, it was the strangest experience to like almost come full circle with this
Yeah.
person and even give them a copy of the book. And I was like, I don't know, you might actually find it helpful even now. Who knows?
Yeah.
Um, and just be able to, I guess, share with this person. I said, I honestly struggled for the longest time because of people like you, of comparing myself during my 20s to that time. And I said to them, I said, I'd lost contact with this person for a few years. And I'm like, I'm really sorry I kind of like lost contact with you. Part of it was I think I needed to go and do my own thing. Like I just needed to not have this, yeah, kind of mirror or reminder. And yeah, it was just this really beautiful moment of almost like closing out these loops. Like I found there's these like loops in my life and I need to close them out. And
Yeah.
another example even of a loop was when I went to North Carolina, because I did a study abroad there when I was at university, and that was a really transformational time for me. And so going a couple of years ago, getting to go back to take my partner there, that was like closing out a loop of, this was an incredible time and now I'm in this new phase of life. But yeah, there's
Yeah.
more and more, I don't know if you've found that, but more and more of these moments are happening.
Yeah.
Yeah, where it's like connecting back in with that thing from years ago, where it's like that was an incredible part of my life, and that's still part of me now, and now I'm also doing this.
Totally. I think it's like that Steve Jobs quote where it's like you can't connect the dots looking forward, but you can connect them looking backwards, and being able to look back at your mistakes and fumbles, and also being able to say like, oh, maybe everyone seems like they have it together, but maybe they actually don't. Like you said, it's like who actually does have their stuff together. It's been interesting for I can relate to so much of what you're saying, because I feel like a lot of my friends who went that same track were like, I'm doing this, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do this. Now are coming to me years later being like, wait, actually, I'm actually not happy doing what I'm doing. And I've been inspired by, the fact that maybe you didn't follow a traditional path or whatever it may be. But I love hearing in your story too. It's really cool. I hope anybody who's listening that might be like a sixth line under 30 years old can go like, yeah, I so get what you're saying. I feel like I haven't followed a linear path or it hasn't looked a certain way, and maybe that was purposeful by design, that it's even if you're not a sixth line, like whatever you may be. But I think if you choose that nonlinear path, there's that other quote, not to keep throwing out inspirational quotes, but it's like if the path in front of you looks certain, it might just be somebody else's path. Versus now, like you've learned how to, sounds like, be at peace with uncertainty and knowing that you're always going to be held no matter where you go.
Mm. Question for you then, absolutely. Question for you of going and now doing like speech therapy again.
Hmm.
That feels like I'm thinking of an equivalent with you, whether it's like that's a real full circle moment of doing
Yeah,
that again. Like, how has that been now through the lens of mid 30-year-old you? Like, how has that experience been?
totally. I love that. I'm laughing because I'm like, I'll do the same thing on people's podcasts. I'm like, so tell me how this resonated for you. I think that just a couple of six lines sitting having a chat. I always thought I was bad at speech therapy. When I started out in my early 20s, 24, 25, 26, I thought I was bad at it. And the reason I thought I was bad at it was because I did not follow the traditional way of doing speech therapy. So much of what I did was so intuitive and about the ability to just attune to a kid and understand them or a person. And I also think, too, the emotional attunement. I always felt like I can help guide and shape them to feel more confident in themselves and who they are. And I think I ran away from speech therapy, similar to what you said about I had to run away to New Zealand to like find myself. I had to run away from speech therapy and go like, I hate that and I'm never doing it again and it's not me and I want nothing to do with it. And it's funny because I built up my business, and at the end of my 20s, like the tail end of my 20s and into my early 30s, and I felt I can actually reflect back now because there's an interesting phenomenon that's happening where I'm hearing people on the internet say the things that I was trying to say years ago and like no one was into it. Like now everybody's saying like don't worry about having a huge audience. Literally this week it just feels like the internet is flooded with don't worry about having a huge audience. Be authentic. It's not about the funnel, just sell. And it's like part of me is like WTF? Like I think for me it's like why did I doubt my own self and like feel frustrated because it was almost like people maybe weren't ready to hear the message, or maybe it's that the right people heard it and that they heard what they needed to hear. And I think for me it was kind of I had to break down, moving from like late 20s into early 30s. I had to break down the probably the last 18 months, especially to 2 years, like all of the mixed messages I was giving to myself about why I didn't fit into the coaching industry or why I didn't fit in here or there. And so speech therapy came back into my life, I think, as a full circle moment to be like, I'm not bad at this. I just had a different way of doing it in a similar way that I can relate, where it's like, I wasn't not good at being a professional anything. It's just I had to do something different because these kids now, I'll say it's like they need the book that you've written. Like they do. They need to understand that they can step out and try different things. And so for me, I went back into speech because I was like, I can't do this anymore. Like I need to take a break from this. And I need something else to stabilize and step into that feels solid. And I actually got back into high school. So I started working with high school kids. And I very much followed my intuition. I'm like, my body is telling me, like, take this job, take this position, take this, this role. And similar to you, I'm like, I'm ready to go full in on working with kids. I want to have this podcast because I want to share stories because I think stories are where we learn and we relate to people, and I want to have conversations. And I'm like, I'm loving being back with kids again. So I see that I had to close the loop of I'm bad at this because I don't do it the way that I've seen it done, or that I would have gotten the perfect marks in school to say, okay, check box, I'm the best speech therapist ever. I had to actually go through that process, and then to return back to it, I'm like, oh, this has nothing to do with being perfect. This has nothing to do with getting it all right. This has everything to do with connection and communication and feeling. And it's taught me so much. So, like, I don't know if I answered your question, but I'm like, I guess that's how I'm seeing it. I'm like, it feels like a closing out of a loop, but also a returning to a part of myself that I had maybe pushed to the side or disregarded. And it feels much more integrated now.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Two things I want to like mention that. How great is it working with young people for a
Oh,
start? I never thought like it's so lame, but I was like, I'm not cool enough to work with young people. And I think if I'd done it when I was 27 or 28, I would have had way too much ego of I need these kids to like, I need to be validated. They need to think I'm cool, right? Whereas now that I'm in my 30s, I don't care if these kids think I'm cool or not. Like, I don't need their approval, right? Because there's now just that age gap and all that kind of stuff. But weirdly, I think because of that like indifference, it almost makes you kind of cooler in some of these kids' eyes, which is
totally.
like the wildest thing. And I never thought I would want to work with that age group. Like I worked with kind of like 15 to 18-year-olds at the moment, but there is something so incredible about it. And I can't even really describe it. It's not like I'm walking out of a school like super giddy or anything, but there's just this that kind of that youthful energy and that nervousness and that oh my gosh they still have so much to learn, but that like almost that ignorance is so beautiful because they're
Yeah.
about to step into some pretty crazy stuff, good and bad. So that was the first thing I want to say of like I totally like relate to that idea of working with even just young people and I don't know, it's a different vibe, right? But the second thing is you and I spoke about this a couple of years ago, I think, for the first time, where I said um, the kind of coaching industry and that online space, all that kind of stuff. When you're in that echo chamber, that's all you're hearing about. And you kind of assume, well, how can I create the online course so that I'm making all this money in my sleep? And so that I've got all the money and I'm scaling it and I've only had to create it once, it's evergreen, all that kind of stuff. And I reckon you and I around a similar kind of time were like, I don't know if this is the best way of always doing things, if it's the most authentic way or even the way to get the most impact, right? And it was probably around the time where you and I were realizing like we wanted to be in person with people, like we wanted to actually have that in person aspect a business and a brand. And when you're talking about even speech therapy, there's so many jobs out there that are like that, where it's sometimes one to one with a client, in person, all that kind of stuff, like even physiotherapists, osteopaths, all that kind of stuff. And they're all great careers or they're all great businesses to have. But when you spend a lot of time, I think, in the online world, you're hearing about all the online businesses and feeling like that pressure maybe to have that massively scalable business where there's one of you and you're bringing in $1 million a year into your business and your one person business, right? But if that doesn't feel like the right fit for you, or you're not having the impact you want to have with the people that you're working with, then you are going to feel probably like a failure in that space, or you're going to feel, like it's just you haven't figured it out. Like, look at this person over here. They're telling me whether it's true or not. They're telling me that they had $100,000 month last month, and it's like, well, we don't actually know whether that's true or not. Whereas, yeah, and it's not to say that that's not a great business for some people. And even with Unserious Careers, like, yeah, absolutely, I'd love to have online resources, all that kind of stuff. But I think I realized I was like, I think my zone of genius is I want to be connecting with people in person. Like, I think
Yeah.
the in person element is super key. And if anything, the online element will supplement that kind of in-person connection. But it's a really weird, I don't know, it's like a weird shift in your mindset then because you get so like lured into that idea of like, oh my God, imagine if I had this online course that made all this money and
Yeah.
then
Yeah.
like everything would be so easy. I could work from Bali if I wanted to. But then I was like, I really like thought about it. I was like, do I want that right now though?
Yeah.
Not really.
I think I so resonate with what you're saying, and I think It's so funny. I love hearing your story because it's so like I can relate to so many of the things you're saying where I'm like, I'm gonna go live in Bali and I'm gonna plane hop and I'm gonna do this and I'm gonna do that and I'm gonna live the digital nomad life and whatever, those things may be. And it's just funny because I think at the end of the day, like you just have to trust where your body and your mind is taking you. Like I can say I really tried to make things continue to work for the last year. It was like being in a bad relationship. I tried to get things that worked in the past to continue working. And when I finally was just like, it's not working anymore. I'm sad, like I'm lonely. I'm in this apartment. I live in a beautiful apartment on the beach. That was my vision for like my whole life. I'm like, I just want to live on the beach. I just want to be somewhere that I love being around. I have community. And like I found it and it was when I was dating someone last summer and he worked outside all the time. And so on the weekend and in the summertime in Florida, working outside is not a good idea. And so on the weekends, he wanted to be inside in the air conditioner and just chill because he had a physical labor job. And I just remember I was like, I am going insane. Like, I cannot be in these four walls. Like, my own apartment is starting to feel like a physical prison for me. When it should be my sanctuary was the moment when I was like, I have not been around people. I need to be around people and I need to be around kids. Like, I love, like you said, being around young people. We can all reflect back to like high school, early college. Like, you're on top of the world because you know nothing. Like, ignorance is bliss. Like, you think you know everything, like, you know nothing. And then your 20s like beat you down a little bit sometimes. And the last podcast I just did, she's like, you're just trying to survive your 20s. Like, you're just trying to survive. And so I think for me, it was that like nudge of I need to work with kids again. I need to be out of the house. I need to be in a school. And I am in a school that like I love. Like I love it. I love going there. I love what I'm doing. And my vision is so clear where I'm like, okay, it's time to start doing these kinds of classes in person. It's time to start bringing teens together and talking about anxiety and coming home to yourself and all these different things that had I just continued to try to make this thing work because we're taught I have to make this work, whatever, I don't know where I would be today. I'd probably be very sad. Um, but there was one other thing I wanted to say on this tangent. I think in the online space, and I never want to like bash anything because I got a lot of great stuff from being in that space. But there becomes this distortion when you're listening to the same message over and over and over again. Because I'll tell you, the message for so long that everyone was saying is just quit your job and become a coach. You'll make a ton of money and everything will be good. I started to have a distorted perception of this job and speech therapy and what I had done. And when I go and just tell normal people that aren't in this space, like I'm a speech therapist, oh my God, that's such an important job. Oh my God, I had a speech therapist and it changed my life when I was a kid. It's like you got to get out of the echo chambers you find yourself in. Otherwise, you will end up just digging yourself into a hole. And there's so much more. And that goes for anything, like, especially we live in a world now of an algorithm where you're just going to keep getting more and more of what you want. It's like you've got to push yourself to step outside of what you know.
It's so true. It's been interesting because I've been like I'm at home at the moment, but I've been on the road for the last 2.5 months, and I've been in like really remote places across Australia and in some really small towns, tiny towns. Like I went to one school and I had 5 students in the talk because that was the most senior students they have, right? And it has been the most fascinating experience. Even though I grew up on a farm, I grew up in a small area. I was 2 hours from a major city. Like some of these places are like 8 hours from a major city, right? And I have been trying to soak it all in and observe it all. And also for the longest time, kind of that idea of needing to run away to New Zealand, I was also running away from the country area that I grew up in, where I don't know, I wanted to have opportunity around me. And I kind of was like, I don't know how these people live in these small towns, like all this kind of stuff. But I've spent now so much time in these small towns that I have this like almost infatuation that started for it again. Because you'll be in this town, it might be 4 hours from a city, and there's something so beautiful and simple about it. Where especially there was this, I remember I met this career advisor at a school, and this was like a pretty like reasonably rough area, pretty low socioeconomic. And she was a career advisor, and she was really young, and she had this like beautiful dress on, and I was like, what is this woman, like how did she come to live here? Like she looked like she belonged in a city or Byron Bay or something like that. And she's like, I love the lifestyle. She's like, not necessarily the lifestyle of here, but she works term times. She's like, in 2 weeks, I'm going to Nepal trekking. Next term, and she already had out these incredible adventures that she's booked for the rest of the year, right? And I would imagine because she's working in this remote place, she'd be getting like a teacher's salary, but she'd be getting probably a top up on top of that for working in a remote area. And her cost of living is so low because she can't spend money on the weekends because there's not a lot to do in this area, but there's also still like outdoor activities and things like that to do. And I said, okay, tell me then, when you moved here, because she moved there, she thought she was going to be there for 3 years. She's now been there for 9 years. And I said, when you moved here, how did you make friends? Because I was like, I don't know, hey, like what would happen here? And she's like, well, so many other people are in a similar situation to me and my partner. They might be the police officers. There's very few jobs in the area, but there's school, there's aged care, there's police force, there's nursing, paramedics, and things like that. She's like, a lot of the time, all of those people have moved here as well, and so we all want to be friends. Like we all want to make friends. And it blew my mind hearing this story about this woman, because if you're just driving through this town, you'd be like, why would anyone want to live here? But then when I
Yeah.
dug into it, it's like she gets to go. She's got like a great role. She's like being part of the education department. She's got a really secure job. Like that is about as secure as it comes once you're kind of in that department. So she's got, for the area she's living in, she's got a great salary. She's got friends that she's made. She can go on these adventures in her holidays. She's got 12 weeks of holiday a year. And I was like, oh my God, I can't believe that I didn't think about this kind of, I don't know, this lifestyle and this like reality. And it's just shifted me, because now it's like I'm going out and I'm seeing things with my eyes of like other ways that people are choosing to live. And it's not like when you're online and someone can share a photo of what they want to show you is part of their life, but they're not necessarily showing the rest of it, right? Whereas, yeah, being in these towns, it's been the most incredible experience of, and I've got this like, I always wanted to be on land eventually, but now it's like, oh my God, I can't wait to like be in a small town again and to go into the post office and know who's working there. And I don't know, it's been the most interesting thing of just being on the ground and seeing
Yes.
how people are living.
Getting different perspectives is what opens up your point of view. It's like go and talk to somebody that you've would have never expected yourself to talk to or to learn from, or a person in a small town. I love that. I think it's so important. And again, like we live in an algorithm land of just being, again, whatever. I even think like politically, like you start to develop these ideas around people are like, well, these people are like this, and these people are like that, and these people are like this. And it's like, go step outside of your box and talk to people, because you might learn something from that person that you maybe least expected to have that experience with, and they might give you a little clue into like your own next steps or reconsidering something from a new perspective. So I love that you were able to have that experience and learn
Mm.
something. And I'm sure that's a lot of the foundation too of the book that you've written, is like go experiment and see what happens.
Yeah, there was another quick story, slightly
Yeah.
different like idea, but I think it's a great thing to explore. I was at this school one day, and so I've been to 78 schools this year, right? So I've had like, this is high schools, so I've got an incredible snapshot of like, I don't know, young people, their psyche, what's happening out there. And I was at this school one day, and low socioeconomic area, and there's an activity I do in my talk. It's called mystery boxes. It's really simple, but I have a volunteer come up to the front of the room, and I talk to them. I get them to share some options that they're thinking about after high school about what they'd like to go and do in their career. And I had this student put his hand up, and it's, I don't like making judgments, right? But I kind of gathered just from the way he presented himself and stuff that he probably was not from a very wealthy family and maybe a little bit rough around the edges, maybe not the most like the most intelligent kid, right? But like great personality, great attitude. The fact he put his hand up to come and volunteer says quite a lot about a young person. And so he come up to the front of the room and I said, "Oh, okay, so share with me what you're thinking about doing after school." And he said, "Okay, well, one option is to get a trade." And he gave another option, and then his third option was to work full time at McDonald's. And I was like, great. And I wrote the answer down. But what killed me is his mates laughed at him when he said work full time at McDonald's. More than one of them did.
Yeah.
And this student wasn't laughing. Like he wasn't looking back at
Mhm.
them getting like, oh, how good was that answer? It was something he was genuinely considering. And I've been to some schools and like I speak to the teachers and stuff. And some of these areas, these students will have come from families where they've been on social security for 5 or 6 generations. So these young people have grown up in households where they don't even see people working. So they never develop a relationship. Oh, I watch my dad go to work each day. He leaves at 7 a.m. He comes back at 4 p.m. He looks really tired at the end of the day. Like some of these students don't even have that example in their household growing up. And I went along with it and I did the activity with this student. And I often tell this story now at future schools. And I'll say, I had this school once, blah, 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 and he said working full time at McDonald's. And sometimes some of the students will laugh in the room in this
Yeah.
other school that's in a completely different part of the country. And I say to them, well, how do you think he felt when his mates laughed at him? And they'll be like, I don't know, he probably felt embarrassed. He probably didn't think it was a good idea. And I guess I'm bringing it back to that point of we have sometimes these generalized or overstated views about careers and life and that kind of thing where it's actually not about you. It's not about what you think about my career. It's actually my career's for me. It's not for anyone else.
Yeah.
And for this student, McDonald's has an incredible training program. And often they're like, I know the CEO of McDonald's Australia, I don't think he's the current one, but the previous one, like he started at McDonald's when he was 15 years old. And so this student, he might have come from a family that hadn't really done much work when he was growing up. If he goes and works full time at McDonald's, he'll still earn a decent wage. And in
Yeah.
2 years' time, he might be the manager, or in 5 years' time, he might be the regional manager. And he might live a really great life for himself. But even if all he wants to do is go and work at McDonald's and he doesn't want to be a manager or anything, who are the rest of us to judge what he wants to go and do with his career and life?
Yep.
And yeah, it's been a really interesting thing to explore these almost biases we have towards certain career pathways, certain lifestyles. And I guess coming back to that point of like learnings is kind of like it doesn't really matter what society, community, your family, or whatever judges your career to be, because at the end of the day, they're not the ones that have to show up and do the work. And so
Mhm.
some people might look at what your career timeline trajectory has been and been like, oh, and like, I don't mean this in an offensive way,
No,
but
no,
some people
no.
might
I
think,
know what you're saying.
oh,
Yeah.
she's doing speech pathology again. Oh, she's working for someone else again. But that doesn't matter. If it's right for you and you're fulfilled by doing that, what does it really matter? And if you're doing
1,000%.
incredible work that you love and you're making the money that you need to make to live the lifestyle you want, then like who
Who
cares?
cares?
Yeah.
I love that story. I love that story. First off, one of the things my dad has said to me many times is it's not about how much money you make, it's about what you do with the money that you have. And I think that that is a very underrated. I had an old client and she was like my brother went to go like work on a farm or something like after high school. I don't even know if he finished high school. And he was like, he went and worked at a farm. And she's like, he's going to retire before me because his living expenses are so low. He socked his money away. And I think we have these societal expectations of what it's supposed to look like, what this like exactly what you just said. I also am I don't know necessarily. I mean, there's definitely low income at the school, but it's an alternative school for kids who are not necessarily, I don't know if they've all gotten kicked out, but they're not doing the traditional high school. They've gone to an alternative school. And I have learned so much. Like, I have learned so much. And some of these kids work at like McDonald's and Burger King and they're slaying it. And they're coming to school in the morning and they're like, I just worked a shift till midnight and now I'm here and I'm going to graduate. And I'm like, you guys are gritty. Like they are gritty. They will go and get what they want, while other students are like, I don't understand this education thing. It's interesting too, because I look at so much of what we like teach in school and like learning and, you know, teaching to take tests. And it's so interesting because you get out of school and you lose that structure, right? And it's like, well, there is no test except can I like show up and make money and do what I need to do? And I think that's why a lot of people feel lost once they get into, the working world, because it's like, hold on, this structure that I was just trained into for 18 years no longer really exists. And I have to figure out this other structure and whatever. And there's certain aspects that are similar, but I love that story because I think it really does bring it back home to this idea of like, you know, we've been taught to test to be perfect or be at a certain level or be here or be this or do that or, whatever. And it's like, who's to say that the kid who fails science and then like makes up this whole story and complex about the fact that he failed science and he's not smart. And then he goes into the real world and he's like, I never even talk about science. And now ChatGPT tells me YouTube tells me everything that I need to know. So I love that idea of like, I guess what I'm hearing is like really being true to yourself and also how important it is to have role models like yourself who can be like, no, you do what you want to do. You follow your truth and to be that role model to say, I did it and like look at where I am today and how I'm moving through life. So
That actually
important.
reminds me of a quick story. There was a student that came up to me at the end of a session, and he was from a special education class, and I'm not quite sure like what he might have had, but he came up and he had the confidence to come up and speak to me at the end, which still really speaks volumes about a young person. And he came up to me and he said, um, "I had like a dream career, like a dream I had for my life, but a teacher when I was in year seven, year eight, so when he was about 13 or 14, they said that dream would never be possible for me. So now I don't think I can do it." And I said, "What's your dream?" And he said, "I want to work in kind of like game design, animation, that kind of thing." And I said, "Okay, that's really interesting." So he was now probably 4 years beyond that, right? But what probably was a throwaway comment by a teacher 4 years earlier has stuck with that kid. A kid who was already been, let's be honest, beaten down by being different. Maybe I don't know what his like friendship circles like. There's so many different things. Like this kid has had to face challenges, but he wasn't stupid. I think he just had an intelligence that wasn't necessarily fitting the box of what like school is like. And I was like, I don't want to make any assumptions, but I would bet if I walked into a gaming company, you are going to find a very interesting mix of characters working there, right? And this teacher, do they know anything about that industry whatsoever?
No.
Probably not. Probably not. And they probably went, and they might not have meant it in such a way that it was like, you'll never do it. They might have just meant, hey, there might be some challenges you face or whatever, right? But
Yeah.
it really kind of annoyed me because I was like, I don't think we have the right to crush dreams of young people.
Yeah.
And we absolutely need to make sure the expectations are set and we're not setting them up for failure, right? But I mean, even when I think about like the roadshow and Unserious Careers, when I thought about the idea of like I want to go to 250 high schools in 1 year right across the country, I didn't have any schools at the time. And if I had have spoken to a logical person, they probably would have said, I don't know. It's like October and you want to start in February. I don't know how you're going to get schools to say yes in that time to get to 250 by the end of the year. They probably would have thought that was stupid, right? And that's just not like, let's set your expectations. But it was really a key couple of conversations that like basically kicked off the momentum. And then here I am with like 150 schools already booked, right? And so I think with some of these young people, some of them have these incredible dreams and these ideas. And I don't think we have the right to, at that young age where they take everything quite literally, I don't think we have the right to, I don't know, shit all over their dreams or whatever it is. I think it's
Yeah.
really, I see my job walking into that school of, I'm here to inspire them. Like, I'm not here to tell them that you can do anything. But I'm here to say, like, if there's something you really want to do, and it might even feel a bit crazy, no one else is doing it, like it might be possible. So, like,
Yeah.
if there's something you want to do, find the people that are going to support you and believe in you. Because how many times have we seen, yeah, people go and do just incredible things in their life that kind of defy logic. That if anyone if they had shared it with the wrong person, they would have said that's a stupid idea. You'll never get it done. But
Yeah.
there's just so much I don't know, like hope and inspiration in that generation. I just think they just need some like role models to say, hey, like you've got this, you can do
Okay, so here's what I think.
it.
We need an Unserious Careers online place for them all to meet with unserious career counselors who can say, "What's your dream?" It's like the hotline. "What's your dream? How can we make it happen?" Because here's the thing that I've learned, and I'm sure you have too. It's sometimes it's not even about the like it's not about getting the thing as much as it is about the pursuit of the thing that makes you learn something about yourself. So maybe that gaming student's like, I want to do this gaming thing. And the teacher's like, well, no. Maybe he ended up going into the gaming, doing whatever with gaming. And it's like he really learned that he's good at this like very specific thing, but he hates the gaming thing. And then that takes him, down a rabbit hole to something else. So I love that you're getting to impact their lives in that way and help them find the path that's right for them just by showing them what's possible. So,
Yeah, I mean, like it's really important, I think. And that's part of the reason why I wrote the book, to be just like for those, even though it's still applicable later in your career, but in particular for those first 5 years of um it's so much harder when you're 30 years old to make a big shift in your career, whether that's because you've got a partner, a mortgage, whether it's just you're set in your ways. Like it's so, I don't know, it's so much more difficult, I think, to have that. You almost have to get to the point of, I have to quit right now, or I'm
yeah.
actually going to have a mental breakdown, right?
Yeah.
Whereas at that age, like just that gentle nudge or that gentle encouragement, and they can go and just have a little bit more confidence to try that thing. Like that can make such a big difference at that age,
Yeah.
as opposed to needing to get to 30 and being like, what am I doing with my life?
Yeah. And they
I
blow
feel
up
like I
my
want
whole
to quit.
path.
I need to blow up everything, right? And that's kind of what it's like. Let's just like give them that opportunity when they're younger to go and explore and try different things, so that you're kind of preventing that massive blow up later on.
Totally. I love it. Okay. Let's close this out. I would love for you to tell everybody where they can find you. Maybe somebody has a school somewhere that they would love Alana to come and speak at. I'll put all your information underneath in the show notes, but tell everybody where they can find you and yeah, where to go from
Yeah,
there.
unseriouscareers.com is my website. So if there's any schools in if anyone's listening and schools in Australia or that kind of thing, there's a link there on my roadshow page where you can fill out a form, and I can see if I can come to that school. You can purchase the book on the website if you're from, I believe, Australia and New Zealand. Otherwise, Amazon's the best place to grab the book. It's in paperback or ebook form. And I'm on LinkedIn. LinkedIn's a good place if you're on LinkedIn to connect with me. Instagram and I are still figuring things out.
Yeah.
Like we're still working out if we're friends or not.
Yeah.
It's kind of like working out what does 2026 and beyond look like, and
Yeah.
then what kind of audience do I want to build then. Social media and I have an interesting past, so
I get it.
website, LinkedIn, they're kind of the best places.
Amazing. I feel like all the Gen Zers are on the TikTok these days. So,
I know. And that's where I'm
yeah.
like, yes, I kind of didn't want to launch too hard into the social media. And that's, I guess, another point with that online thing of like, I haven't needed to, because I've
Yeah.
found the connections through conversations. And so I'm like, this
In
is okay.
true
I don't
fourth
actually need
line
to.
fashion.
Right. All about your network.
Always. Always. I love it. I think we all have a weird relationship with Instagram. I'm trying to It's like a toxic ex you can't get enough of.
So true.
So true. Well, thank you so much for being here. Everybody, thank you for listening in. If you want to check out Alana, all her stuff will be in the show notes. And I'll see you back here on the next episode of the podcast.